The more connected fans feel to their sports teams, the more likely they are to invest in it, whether it's tickets, gear, or souvenirs. Engage with fans by asking for their input on team decisions by getting a .vote team website. Visit GoDaddy.com today to get started.
The Bryce Harper, Rob Manfred showdown is just the first of many. Baseball has another betting scandal. Jerry Jones is just the worst kind of owner. And could a European soccer team be the model for stadium deals in the United States? It's all right now on a new edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. All right, welcome into another edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. We got lots to discuss on this episode, but before we get too deep into it, do me a favor, please hit that subscribe button, like the episode, share it with a friend. It really does mean a ton. All right, so we got lots of topics to discuss today, but I wanted to start off with baseball because I think it was like a month ago that on the podcast we were talking about the baseball collective bargaining agreement and the negotiations and how Rob Manfred is going from team to team, trying to talk to the players, take the temperature of where they stand on the issues. And you might be wondering, wow, I wonder how that's going exactly. Well, Monday, we got a little glimpse of how it's going, and it's not going well, apparently. Yeah, so this incident, I think this took place last week. But the story, Rob Manfred making his 30-team tour, charm campaign, kind of bonding with the players, hearing their concerns, and occasionally, every once in a while, if he's feeling bold, kind of push a little economic ideology on the players, pointing out the benefits for them of a salary cap. Only this time, apparently he picked the wrong team. He was talking to the Phillies and Bryce Harper, sat quietly throughout most of the meeting, but as the conversation started to drift into the economics, and more specifically, the possibility of a salary cap, Harper was not having it, stood up, walked directly up to the commissioner and said with his bat in hand, quote, "If you want to speak about that, you can get the bleep out of our clubhouse." Now, credit Rob Manfred, he didn't back down. He said that he was not going to leave and saying that they need to talk about the threats to Major League Baseball business. But let's be honest, that's the moment, right? If this were a video game, you could now fast forward to the lockout portion of the season because clearly, unless something unforeseen happens, like the owners giving up the possibility of a salary cap in this next negotiation, that's where we're headed. We're headed to a lockout. We're headed to a work stoppage. We're 2 years away from the CBA expiring. It doesn't happen until December 1st, 2026, and already both sides are digging in their heels. The league's most influential players are openly bracing for war. Harper basically said they're willing to give up 162 games. They'll lose a season because they're not accepting a salary cap. And while there might be lots of different issues to work through on the new CBA, it's clear the number one is the possibility of a cap. And you don't have to be Nostradamus to see where this goes. The players will not accept it. Not now, not ever. They've fought this one before. They don't trust the owners to begin with. So the commissioner who works for the owners going from team to team, it seems nice, but they don't trust him. They are not going to be swayed by economic lectures or town halls or graphs comparing the top earners to the minimum guys. You know, Manfred has said he's using these meetings to educate the players on the financial disparities. But the way the players see it, and I think that they're probably right, is he's trying to drive a wedge between the players, the stars of the game, and the more rank and file union members, hoping that some of the younger guys or the lower guys might go soft. But again, this is a matter of resolve. This is not a misunderstanding. This is not about the players needing to be educated about the benefits of a cap. It's basically a pissing contest between the owners and the players. And if you were placing odds somewhere on who's going to win this time, you'd have to go with the team that wins every time. And it's the players who win. Since '94, the league has not lost a single regular season game to a work stoppage. But it's pretty clear that Manfred anticipates a lockout this time around. And it's kind of hard to understand why. But it feels like just enough time has passed from the owners to forget about just how much of a non-starter a salary cap is with the players. And the game is doing well enough that when push comes to shove, the owners have a lot more to lose by pushing for a cap and blowing up a season than the players do. Baseball now has league revenue of $12.1 billion. That's a 33% increase over the last decade. And in that span, player salaries have only risen 18%. The union is already using that point to say, look, why would we agree to a salary cap when the money is there, but it's not filtering, not enough of it is filtering onto our side of the ledger. Now, the average salary is now up to a record $4.6 million, and that's great. But when ownership's pockets are getting deeper faster than payrolls, you better believe the union notices that. So the money is there. The cap is a non-starter. And Harper made it very, very clear, and I think he speaks probably for a lot of players, that if the commissioner is going to bring that nonsense into a clubhouse, it's not going to go over well. So this is not a branding problem. Manfred doesn't need to educate the players on the business side of the game. There's no set of words that he can come up with to create internal support among the players for a cap, and the players clearly are not falling for that. And just to give you a kind of an idea of where the level of trust is with the players, Mark DeRosa, former Major League player, now works for the commissioner, said what was almost certainly a joke, but it was not taken that way by the players. So after the blow-up that Harper had with Manfred, DeRosa said the commissioner is a powerful guy. You don't want to mess with him. He said it in front of a bunch of Phillies players. He was joking, it certainly seemed like, but the players, they did not like that implication that the commissioner would retaliate. Now, DeRosa said he was kidding and said that he thought he had a better relationship with those players than he does, but that just shows you even a former player who's now working for the commissioner, he's no longer a former player. He's on the other side. That's where the players' level of trust is at. And you know that the union is going to be having their own meetings with their players, and what they'll say at that time is, a hard cap is not about competitive balance. It's about the owners increasing franchise value, keeping salaries down, and protecting the owners from the owners. So the data that Manfred doesn't want to mention in those meetings, as I said, baseball revenues are up to $12.1 billion in 2025. That's up 33% in the last decade, but the average player salary has only gone up 18% in that time. So when the owners cry poor, the numbers just don't back it up. The money is flowing. It's just not flowing to the players at the same rate. MLB TV had its most watched 3-day stretch in history. July 4th attendance, the highest in a decade. Fans are showing up, they're tuning in, and they're buying in. 11.1 billion minutes were watched on MLB TV this year. That's a jump of 32% over last year's record pace. So financially, the game is not hurting. After all, that's the only metric Rob Manfred and the other owners care about. It's not about growing the game. It's about growing the financial pie, and they've done a very good job of that. Now, every other sport does have a salary cap, so it would seem to make sense, hey, why doesn't baseball get one too? The only problem is that the cap only makes sense to the owners, and they cannot use the excuse of we need the cap to make the sport more competitive. Because right now, baseball has never been more competitive. Parity already exists. No team this season is on pace for 100 wins. No team has won more than 60 through their first 100. That's the first time that's happened since 2014. The league is knee-deep in competitive chaos, and guess who's thriving? The small market teams and the mid-market teams. If the season ended today, half the playoff field would come from mid-sized markets. The Brewers competing for the best record in baseball, and they come in 23rd in payroll. The Tigers are at 18th. The Astros, they're right in the middle of the pack at 15. Only 4 American League teams are more than 5 games out of a playoff spot with August right around the corner. In the National League, 6 teams are, but included in the pack that are chasing a playoff spot, the Cardinals 14th in payroll, the Reds are 21st. So the good news for Rob Manfred, this is exactly what baseball wanted when it expanded the playoff field in 2022. It added more chaos. It gave more teams margin for error. It made it possible to have a rough month. Heck, you could even sell at the deadline and still sneak into October and into the playoffs. So look, if you want to fix things, there are things to fix. Get rid of the Dodgers' deferred money loophole, force teams to spend the money they're given in revenue sharing, institute a spending floor. That would go a long way to convincing the players that you view them as partners in this CBA. But don't tell us that the system's broken, because the only thing that's really broken is the trust. And the reason for that is on the owners. So that article by ESPN, there was a paragraph or two about where the support among the owners is for a salary cap. And I got to be honest, as a Yankee fan, this is the most disheartening thing you could possibly hear. Among the teams that are stumping for a salary cap directly or indirectly, Baltimore's David Rubenstein, Boston's John Henry, Pittsburgh's Bob Nutting, and yes, Yankee owner Hal Steinbrenner. I will say this. If Hal Steinbrenner truly supports the idea of a salary cap, he should be forced to legally change his name. He should no longer be able to call himself a Steinbrenner if at the end of the day, he is in favor of a salary cap. That's like going to see a rock band that's using the name of the band, but nobody in the band anymore was in the band back then. It's like copyright infringement. You cannot be a Steinbrenner. The family that built the Yankees on outspending everyone, weaponizing their payroll and buying stars, and then willingly negotiate away the franchise's biggest competitive advantage. That would be like saying, hey, from now on, Aaron Judge can only hit once per game. That feels fair. The other team doesn't have an Aaron Judge. Again, I think I'm going to need a DNA test to prove that Hal Steinbrenner is actually a Steinbrenner. The richest team in baseball, the biggest market in the country, most storied history, and yet Hal is out there volunteering to level the playing field. Hey, I get it. We're the New York Yankees, but let's make sure we're on the same financial footing as the Kansas City Royals or the Tampa Bay Rays. Even spending as much as they do right now, the Yankees are in their longest World Series drought in franchise history, or pretty close to it. That should make them even more desperate to retain every edge they have. You know, before George Steinbrenner bought the Yankees, he tried to buy the Cleveland Indians back then. That's the team that Hal should be running, clearly. The Cleveland Guardians are much more his speed. And if he were running them, then it would make sense for him to be pushing for a salary cap, not the New York Yankees. All right, we'll do a little bit more baseball in a minute, but I wanted to shift gears to football because I have good news for football fans, just about every football fan. And that news is the Cowboys are going to suck again, and they will never win another championship as long as Jerry Jones is the owner. Now, that's probably not really going out on a limb. And let's be honest, this promise doesn't have a long shelf life, right? Jerry's 82 years old, but Jerry Jones does not care about winning. Now, he'll tell you he does. He'll say all the right things, but his actions scream something else entirely. Jerry Jones is only interested in one thing, and that is being the center of attention. That spotlight addiction has been killing the Cowboys now for basically 3 straight decades. Now, as a businessman, clearly Jerry is brilliant. Bought the Cowboys for $140 million. Today, reports are they're worth over $9 billion, most valuable sports franchise in the world. He helped turn the NFL into a marketing behemoth. He paved the way for the massive TV deals. He revolutionized the way teams make money off stadiums and sponsorships, and that's all great. But in terms of actually winning important football games, his team, and more importantly, him, he has not done that in a very long time. It's been almost 30 years since the Cowboys won a Super Bowl, and the crazy part is, a lot of owners, they don't know what success looks like. They don't know how to be successful. Jerry had the blueprint right in front of him from when he walked in and bought the team. Early 90s, Jimmy Johnson building the league's next dynasty with smart drafts, knowing the value of draft picks. 2 rings, 92, 93. It was all working. And of course, what does Jerry do? He gets jealous because not all the spotlight was on him. He was worried Jimmy Johnson was getting way too much credit, and we all know Jerry wants all the glory, not just some of it. So he fires the architect of his empire, and right there, I don't believe in karma in a cosmic sense, but that might be the greatest bit of sports karma of all time, because since then, they have won basically nothing. They won another ring in 95 with Jimmy's Players and Barry Switzer. But since then, not even a conference championship game appearance. So the Cowboys have not been to a single conference championship game since 1995. Kids born after that Super Bowl are now old enough to have kids of their own. And Jerry still likes to present himself as the smartest football guy in the room, still plays the GM, still is in front of every microphone, every camera, every press conference, never letting go of control, even as the team has been crumbling. He is addicted to getting all the credit. And of course, lately, there's not been a lot to take credit for. So now the Cowboys have a problem. It is the Micah Parsons situation. Guy's waiting for a new contract, has done everything right. He showed up to training camp. He's waiting on his mega extension. And of course, what does Jerry do? He downplays it. Says weird things about Parsons' health. He acts like he doesn't know who his agent is. All of this stuff that we've seen time and time again so that Jerry can have the spotlight, so that Jerry can be the center of attention. And if this seems like a familiar story, it's because this has played out multiple times and it always ends in the same way. He's almost like the stories you used to hear about George Steinbrenner wanting to have the back pages and would make moves just so that the focus could be on him. That's Jerry Jones. And this Micah Parsons situation, it's Groundhog Day. Go back to 93 with Emmitt Smith held out, looking for a new contract. Jerry downplayed it. Cowboys started 0-2, and then immediately Jerry caves. Emmitt comes back. They start winning games, and they win a Super Bowl. But go back to 2019. Ezekiel Elliott leads the league in rushing, holds out. Jerry told us at the time, well, you don't need rushing champs to win. Then, of course, immediately caves after that. Gives him $90 million, and of course, you don't pay running backs that second contract. Zeke faded. The contract became dead weight. The player won, but the team lost. Go back a couple of years ago with Zach Martin, six-time All-Pro, was underpaid, skipped camp. Jerry shrugged at the time eventually, and then eventually paid up, and the player won again. Then last year with CeeDee Lamb, had that big monster season, looking for a new contract. Jerry, there's no urgency. Then a couple of weeks later, Jerry makes him the second highest paid wide receiver in the league. So it's a pattern. Jerry tries to play hardball. Every single time he folds, but not before dragging the team into the spotlight so he can have the attention and distracting from the actual football, which, considering how little winning the Cowboys do anymore, maybe that's actually his master plan. I don't know. But in terms of the Micah Parsons situation, Jerry will drag it out, soak up the headlines, and eventually he'll cut the check, and the damage will be done again. So this is all good news for people who hate the Cowboys, because the owner of the Cowboys holds the Cowboys back more than really any other team. Teams in the NFC East should hope that Jerry owns the team till 3025. Hope that he always owns the team, because no one is better at sabotaging his own team than him. And here's the thing. You shouldn't be an owner in the NFL and have that lack of winning, because the league is set up to help teams win. You have revenue sharing. That's not an issue. The draft, free agency, hard cap. Every team gets the same shot. So you don't need to be in a huge market. You don't have to have a billionaire's war chest. The system literally gives everyone a path to success. But yet, since their last Super Bowl win, the Cowboys are 5-13 in the playoffs. They've had 6 head coaches since then, haven't been to a conference championship game in 3 decades. So that's not just some bad luck. That is bad ownership. And that is clearly on one person, Jerry Jones. All right, back to baseball, which has another gambling scandal on its hands. On Monday, Cleveland Guardians closer Emmanuel Clase was placed on paid administrative leave. Not disciplinary action yet, but this is part of Major League Baseball's investigation into sports betting. Now, he is the second Guardians pitcher to be removed from the roster in the last couple of weeks. Right-hander Luis Ortiz was placed on leave back on July 3rd. So Couple of things. A, this is a big deal. Secondly, these type of stories are becoming a little too common for Major League Baseball. And usually when these stories pop up, which they do, it usually involves minor players, role players. Clase has been one of the most dominant closers in baseball the last few seasons. Last year put up an ERA under 1, converted 47 of 50 save chances. This year has not been as good. 5 blown saves, an ERA over 3. And just a couple of days ago, before being placed on leave, he gave up a walk-off 3-run home run to the Kansas City Royals. But here's where things get weird, because as soon as you get a story like this, the Twitter sleuths start going through old game videos and everything else. The account on Twitter, Foolish Baseball, said Clase has entered the game in the 9th inning 40 times this year, which is, pretty standard for a closer. But StatCast is tracking something called waste percentage. That's the percentage of pitches that are non-competitive, not close to being strikes. And for Clase, first pitch of the 9th inning, waste percentage is 17.5%. Every other pitch by him in that same category, just 5.2%. Now, to be fair, you can't say that means anything conclusive, but if you're baseball, if you're a betting integrity firm or a sports book, DraftKings, FanDuel, whoever, who's watching these bets in real time, that kind of statistical discrepancy does raise some red flags, especially with the team that has already kind of been focused in on already. Now, again, it's speculative, but the pattern isn't really hard to spot. And that brings me to the bigger point here, because this is not the last time this is going to happen. In fact, these gambling-related scandals, I think, are just going to become commonplace. So it's good that we're still treating it like a big deal. I don't know in a year from now if we'll still feel that way, if every month or so we get another investigation into baseball. And there's a reason we're finding out about these things now. And it's not because baseball suddenly got better at policing itself. It's because of the sports betting apps, the data surveillance of these guys, the digital sports books. They flag a regular betting pattern in real time, not after the fact. And that's how most of these investigations start. They're not driven by the league security. They're triggered by DraftKings or FanDuel or the guys in Vegas. They're the real watchdogs now. So what to me pops up is it makes me wonder, how many times did this happen over the years and nobody noticed? Because the shady stuff, the bets that aren't flagged, those are the ones that are happening offshore or with unregulated bookmakers with no oversight or no alerts to anyone. So if you think this is new behavior or this just suddenly popped up because of FanDuel or DraftKings or whoever, I think you're missing the point. What's new here is the detection, not the action. Now back to Cleveland for a second. This is an incredible blow for them because, look, the trade deadline, Clase is not going to be traded, obviously. He's off the market, and teams are always looking for relievers. You can really cash in by trading away relievers at this time of year. The market is greater than the supply. And the playoff push for Cleveland, now they're kind of hanging there. It's made it all the tougher, right? The day started with the Clase investigation, and then at the end of the night, the Guardians go out. His replacement gives up 4 runs in a third of an inning and blows the save. So the front office is kind of stuck in this limbo, and the timing could not be worse. But for baseball, this is what you signed up for. You wanted the gambling money, you got it. It's funny to me that we're seeing it more, it seems like, in baseball. Maybe it's just because we're in baseball season. Maybe in football season, we'll see more there. Maybe in basketball season, we'll see more there. It's kind of popped up in all of them to a certain degree. But for baseball, you wanted the gambling money, you got it. You got the apps, you got the ads, you got the partnerships, you got all, but you got the other part of it too. You got the integrity risk, you got the surveillance, you got players now under the microscope. And I think clearly every sport, these type of headlines are not going away.
Marketing for a sports team? Can't quite think of a way to engage loyal fans as much as you would like? This is where a .vote web address comes in. Allow for fans to help decide player of the game, player of the week, or MVP of a season. There are hundreds of ways you can conduct polls for fan engagement that benefits both the organization and the fan base. Visit www.godaddy.com and purchase www.yourteam.vote.
All All right, for our last story today, I wanted to talk about something a little different. You know, whenever teams talk about new stadiums, it always feels like a disaster, whether it's the Bears and what they're doing in Chicago, or the Chiefs in Kansas City, or the A's move to Las Vegas. Over in Spain, though, Real Madrid has just pulled off one of the greatest business moves in modern sports history, and it's one that I think that every front office or team owner here in the United States should be paying attention to. Now, shout out to Joe Pampliano, who laid this out brilliantly in his newsletter. What Real Madrid just did with their stadium, it has to be one of the coolest and certainly one of the smartest business moves in modern sports history. So Real Madrid has this 75-year-old cathedral of a stadium, the Santiago Bernabeu. It's smack dab in the middle of downtown Madrid. So instead of tearing down their cathedral of a stadium or running out to the suburbs to build something new with taxpayer money, they decided they're going to renovate. They're going to keep the home that is one of the biggest tourist attractions in the country and make it one of the most advanced multi-use sports complexes on the planet. Now, they had to borrow almost $2 billion, and it took almost 4 years of construction, which sounds like a lot until you see what they turned it into, because it's not just a soccer stadium anymore. It is a full-blown entertainment machine. So they didn't just slap a coat of paint on it. They added a retractable roof, a sleek new facade that lights up, something out of the Blade Runner movies. They made it fully enclosed, climate-controlled, year-round venue that can host everything from soccer games to concerts to conventions, an NFL regular season game later this year. And the real stunner is the field itself. They installed a retractable natural grass pitch, but not like the ones in Vegas or Arizona where it wheels outside into the sun. This one lowers into the ground. The grass is stored beneath the stadium in this high-tech climate-controlled bunker. So that means that they can host concerts or basketball games or boxing events or trade shows, whatever they want, and the soccer field is protected underground the entire time. So when you talk about like MetLife with the Giants and Jets, they don't want to switch to a grass field despite the injuries every year because the other events that the stadium hosts, it just wouldn't live up to the wear and tear of those events, and they want to make money with those things too. So this thing is absolutely incredible. And it's been a home run in terms of the finances too. Total revenue last year, $1.4 billion. That's more than the Cowboys drew, who were the previous number one in global sports. So Real Madrid just became the first team in history to cross that threshold. But they did all this without jacking up ticket prices. They didn't alienate their fan base. They didn't have to go begging for public money. There were no lawsuits. It was just really smart long-term planning, and they executed it flawlessly. Another big part of it was the financing they secured. They didn't have to start paying any of it back until the renovations were complete. So you just compare that to what some of the teams that are going on with now, the Bears wanting to move to the suburbs, the A's, the whole drama there with moving to Vegas, the Rays dropping, I think it's $500 million in Tampa. Meanwhile, they still can't draw flies. So for me, the takeaway is, you see all these sports teams here in America that are obsessed with tearing things down and building new stadiums with every new advantage they have, or moving to new cities, or grabbing public money and all the political leverage that are used to get every last dollar out of it, and higher ticket prices and all that nonsense. And what Real Madrid was able to do kind of completely flipped that script. They stayed in the home that they already had, and they modernized it to an unbelievable degree. So I'm thinking if Real Madrid can do that in one of the busiest and most densely populated cities in Europe, if they can renovate this 75-year-old stadium into this modern cathedral, why can't American teams do the same thing? All right, that is going to do it for another episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. If you've not already done it, how could you have not done it by now? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share the episode with friends. It really does help get the podcast growing, and that's what we need to do. So please do so, and we'll see you again later this week with a fresh episode of Gordon Damer on Sports.